you
I mean,
know?
I think the simple starting point is I think we kind of have a sense from consensus of who the top six are. Um, you know, Cunningham, Mobley, Suggs, Green, Kuminga, and Barnes. And obviously, as a Warriors fan, we're looking at seven, which in many ways, you know, we kind of control the next phase of the draft in a lot of directions because that those next groups seem like they could fall a lot of different ways.
Mhm.
What are you thinking for the Warriors at seven? Makes the most sense.
Well, I've heard a lot of the rumors about them potentially, and again, I don't have any inside information as to how their front office is thinking, but I've read the rumors about them taking the 7th and 14th and packaging it up and sending it off for, another player. Me on the other hand, from my standpoint, you really don't know what you have in Wiseman just yet, and I wouldn't be ready just to ship him off to another team, um, because you just never know who's going to be, if he's going to be the second coming of a great player or the first coming of somebody we've never seen before, just with his physical gifts and just. I think he's in a great situation just because of the spacing and all the shooters that he has around him. That was always the philosophy when I was with Portland when we drafted Greg Oden. Like, you can never have enough shooters around this kid. And then you've got Clay back in the fold. You've got Steph and those guys that are back in the fold, and then they're clicking on all cylinders. This kid has nothing but real estate and space to operate down there in the event that there's no open three from the outside that Clay and Steph and all the other guys can get up. So it's just, and plus he could be a dynamic roller. When you're rolling to the basket, that physically gifted, it's an easy bucket all day long as you don't get hurt. And so with the 7th and 14th pick, I'm more so looking for, like an insurance policy type, and like in the event that there is another injury, who can be able to step in and kind of help us keep afloat until those main guys are actually back in the fold. So you may be looking at a guy like Book Knight, maybe looking at a guy like Wagner at 7, just guys that play with a high level of basketball IQ that understand the game. And I think the key thing is just having somebody who's versatile. I think one of the things that people overlook with Golden State, they pack a great offensive punch, but just one of the key things for them to be able to stay in games, they're able to switch 1 through 5. I mean, you have a lot of NBA teams that are switching now, but more so with them, they can switch 1 through 5. And even with Steph, not necessarily the greatest of defensive players, but there's still effort that's there. And being able to switch 1 through 5 makes things so much easier on the defensive end because, every NBA team has at least one true big. So this is why I feel like you have to keep Wiseman. He could be that one true big that you can have. You don't want to play small ball going in every game where you got the likes of everybody in the Western Conference that at least has 1 to 2 actual true bigs. So you got to keep that size. And that's one of the reasons why, even reading some of the comments about trading those picks and shipping Wiseman off, I'm like, we don't know what we have in him just yet. Let's just see what we got first.
Right. Also, in Bob Myers's exit interview, basically he was saying that someone asked him about the process of the whole figuring out the draft, where in past drafts it would be much more complicated because there's so many variables from 1 to 27th and they're picking 28th, for example. Here they kind of know that, okay, let's just get it right up. If we can get it up to 14, then we can get a good pick through 7. And then also with the whole process of it, the most important thing I thought he said was about a week before the draft is when we'll know how much these picks are worth. That's when it gets really interesting. So the week before the draft is everything kind of starts to really move quickly for them. So what do you think about, I feel like there's kind of a drop off from 6 to 7 because you're looking at the big 5 that everybody knows, Scotty Barnes, probably the 6th. And then you're going to a Book Night or Wagner, and it feels like there's a drop off. How big of a drop off is that?
I think it's a pretty big drop off. There's a lot of parity, after those picks. Once you kind of get down, you've got guys with similar height, similar athleticism, or you got some more specific guys with that one skill, like, the kid Kisper out of Gonzaga, just a flat out shooter. He could be an integral piece for any team. It just depends upon what type of system that they play. So it's just, I think from that point on, it just depends upon what type of system you're going to run and how you want to play. You want to rely more so on a 3-point shot, or are we going to just draft somebody who's versatile where we can also switch 1 through 4? Because the NBA, whether we want to admit to it or not, it's a copycat league. once a team kind of finds a formula that's working for them, where they're able to do something defensively or offensively, everybody's kind of looking for that next piece. Like, how can we take a piece of what they do and incorporate it into what we do, and kind of have it all meshed together and help us take us to a level that we haven't been to or we aspire to get to. So I do feel like there's a drop off. So again, there's a lot of parity, and then there's some guys that that have really good size for their position, but not fully developed offensively as to what role they're going to serve on an NBA team. Just like the kid Scotty Barnes, great size as a point forward, maybe in some spot minutes as a one, but you still really don't know what all he could really bring to a table outside of having that great size for his position. So do you slide him more to a three versus him being a ball dominant type wing? So a lot of it just kind of really depends upon just what the identity of that team will be going into this draft, and will they draft accordingly? Like, hey, we're looking to be this type of team. Is there a player out there that fits what we're trying to do that can kind of help us turn the curve?
In my opinion, I'll let you guys jump in too, but in my opinion, I'm at every Zoom call of the Warriors during the season, and I just hear Steve talking about wings all the time. So I feel like we got to get some type of wing. I think Wagner can pass as one of those, but I feel like number one is the wing, and then number two would be like a playmaker type to sort of complement Jordan Poole on the second team, and which is something they struggled with last season. Of course, Clay was injured though, so there's always that asterisk. So I'm kind of looking at that. Gabe, I think maybe you're thinking slightly differently.
I mean, I don't know. I've just been devouring YouTube scouting reports, so it's not like I know for anything for real here. But yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting to me. I think and I would like your feedback on this, having actually been in draft rooms, like knowing that sort of there is this kind of flattening of the talent level after 6, where, like you said, there's this drop off. And in many ways, I've been furiously looking at big boards and mock drafts, and people have that next 7 through 14 ranked in wildly different ways, right? And there's some draft experts who have players ranked 8 who are 22 on somebody else's board or whatever, right? Is there, imagining that you're working for the Warriors or whatever, do you think of that as an advantageous position of being well, we can kind of just pick whoever we like, as opposed to thinking about with Wiseman, for instance, at number 2, you kind of have to be drafting for big time upside and really thinking about best player available kind of stuff. Whereas maybe in this second grouping, the difference between a Bouknight and a Moody and a Wagner and a Mitchell, is maybe not that big. And so they can kind of settle on the people that they actually like.
Yeah, I think it's more along the lines of just identifying a guy that fits the way that they want to play. Clay and Steph are not going to be, probably from this point on in their careers, they're not going to probably be able to play a whole entire 82 game season. So who can we add to the mix that will kind of help us keep us afloat, keep us in games, help us kind of stay around that 500 when those key guys are out? And so it's who would be a best complement if Wiseman is playing a lot of games? Who would be a great complement to play beside him? Is it another wing? Is it more of a spread forward where he can occupy, that low block area? So it's just, you're looking for the best fit. It's a combination of best fit, best available. Who is our guy? Who do we see kind of coming in and really kind of just, again, carrying the ship while Clay is out, while Steph is out, on those nights where those guys need rest, running those guys into the ground for 82 games and then expecting them to perform at a high level in the playoffs. I'm not saying it's not possible, but you also have to just kind of be mindful, what's the end goal mission of it? Are we trying to just play 82 games, or are we trying to be one of those final teams that are playing deep into the playoffs right now? And who can kind of best help us keep the ship afloat, in this year's draft? Again, it's just, as he said, as the draft kind of gets closer, those real ideal trade scenarios kind of really kind of begin to show themselves. as of right now, there's a lot of chit chatter that's out there. Just they're probably the greatest poker game ever played right now. Nobody really wants to show their hand as to what they're thinking and what they want to do. But you've got that list of guys up based upon your intel, your scouting throughout the course of the year, like who best fits us right now that can plug in and play and keep the things afloat as we, integrate Clay back into the mix, making sure we're not burning Steph out, make sure we're not, running Draymond into the ground. Like who can step in and kind of fill that role and best provide that punch for us. And so you've kind of got a little bit of a pick a little, even though there is a drop off, but there are some guys in that you can kind of plug in right now just to kind of keep things afloat around that 500 level until those guys are kind of really back and kind of fully hit their stride.